Have you ever actually stopped to wonder how we know what happened in the past? And I don't just mean the big broad strokes, but the really intricate, complex details of how a whole nation transformed over centuries. Well, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're not just going to read history. We are going to investigate it. We are officially putting on our detective hats to figure out exactly how we piece together the massive puzzle of modern India's past. We're going to look at the clues, the hard evidence, and even the traps left behind by the people who came before us.
Long years ago, we made a tryst with destiny. At the stroke of the midnight hour, when the world sleeps, India will awake to life and freedom. You've probably heard those words before, right? That's Jawaharlal Nehru. And that specific moment, midnight in 1947, is the dramatic culmination of the era we are digging into today. It is literally the finish line of our historical detective work. But to really understand that finish line, we have to trace the path that actually got us there.
So let's map out our crime scene. The modern period of Indian history covers a massive expanse of time. We're starting way back in 1600 CE, right when the English East India Company got their charter to trade. From there, we hit these huge milestones: the decisive Battle of Plassey in 1757, the Great Revolt in 1857, the foundation of the Indian National Congress in 1885, all the way up to that tryst with destiny in 1947. When India finally achieved independence. This whole timeline, this is our field of study. This is the era of massive transformation we're looking at.
Now, a crucial first step is defining what actually happened during this time. A lot of historians just call it the colonial period. But this wasn't just a military takeover or drawing new lines on a map. It was a total systemic shockwave. We are looking at the profound political, economic, and cultural footprints left behind by an empire. As historical detectives, we aren't just hunting for the dates of random battles. We're looking for the massive systemic changes that permanently altered the trajectory of millions of lives.
But you have to beware of the traps in historical investigation. One of the absolute biggest is periodization. Take a look at the Scottish historian James Mill. He once divided Indian history into three really reductive buckets: Hindu, Muslim, and British. He literally categorized an entire subcontinent's past merely by the religion of its rulers, at least, until the British showed up. Modern historians quickly realized this was incredibly flawed and fixed this heavily criticized categorization. They shifted to a much broader, more inclusive framework: ancient, medieval, and modern. It's a great reminder that how we label the past drastically changes how we understand it.
All right, let's dive into part one, the official clues and what the British actually left behind.
If you want to control a massive subcontinent, you got to write things down. And man, write things down they did. The British had an absolute obsession with recording and preserving official proceedings. Just think about the sheer volume of these administrative clues today. We have the National Archives of India in New Delhi and the India Office records housed all the way over in London. We are talking about over 300 unique collections and upwards of 3,000 deposits of private papers. These archives are absolute gold mines for understanding the official views, the interests, and the administrative wishes of the colonial government.
To really wrap our heads around the massive scale of this British data collection, let's just break it down step by step. First off, as early as 1767, they established the Survey of India, because they realized that to run a country, you absolutely need to know its topography, the soil, the flora, the whole shebang. That leads to step two, extensive topographical mapping across the vast Indian landscape by guys like William Lambton and Sir George Everest. And finally, step three, they literally went from mapping the dirt to counting the people. Henry Walter conducted the first complete census in Dhaka back in 1830. This relentless gathering of statistics was exactly what drove their national policies.
And get this, here's a surprising little fact that shows just how big of a deal these mapping expeditions were. 1865. That is the exact year the world's highest peak was formally named after that British Surveyor General we just talked about, George Everest. I mean, talk about a permanent, towering legacy of an era obsessed with mapping and surveying.
So that's the official side. But official documents only ever tell one side of the story. Let's move to part two, the personal clues, and discovering Indian voices.
To get the full picture, we have to seek out the realities that those official records completely left out. Personal diaries and autobiographies of key leaders really break through that colonial narrative. You've got works like Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru's Toward Freedom, Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar's Waiting for a Visa, and Mahatma Gandhi's The Story of My Experiments with Truth. These reveal incredible, on-the-ground facts that were totally unknown to the common people of the time. But
As good detectives, we have to be a little cautious here. These sources are incredibly valuable, sure, but they are inherently tied to personal experiences and perspectives. They don't always give you a completely objective 360-degree view.
But then the printing press comes along and sparks this massive national awakening. The impact was basically immediate. You had Hickey's Bengal Gazette picking things off in 1780. That was the very first newspaper in India. Then you get these regional powerhouses like Bal Gangadhar Tilak's Marathi paper, Kesari, which was absolutely crucial in molding public opinion. And we definitely can't forget vital books like Dadabhai Naoroji's Poverty and Un-British Rule. That book completely laid bare the economic history of the period. Print literally gave the freedom struggle its voice.
And sometimes, print gives us something totally unexpected. Listen to this. Dear friend, friends have been urging me to write to you for the sake of humanity. This isn't just any old letter. This is personal correspondence from Mahatma Gandhi addressed directly to Adolf Hitler. Let that sink in for a second. Stumbling across historical letters like this demonstrates how we can get a raw, completely unfiltered peek into the minds of historical figures. It humanizes them, placing them in the vast, complex web of global history in a way a standard textbook simply cannot do.
Okay, let's move into part 3, the visual clues and how we actually see the past.
We've read the official reports, we've checked the personal diaries. Now let's look at the physical anchors of history. Buildings are never just buildings, they are political statements carved in stone. Let's contrast two iconic structures here. On one hand, we have India Gate, its walls heavily inscribed with the names of Indian soldiers and British officers martyred in World War I and the Afghan Wars. It is quite literally a monument of sacrifice. On the other hand, look at the Gateway of India in Mumbai. That was built in 1911 specifically to commemorate the royal visit of King George V and Queen Mary. By comparing these two, we gain critical knowledge about the shifting political developments and the vastly different priorities of the colonial empire over time.
But as we look at the visual evidence of the past, I want to stop and ask you a very direct question. Think about this carefully for a second. Does a photograph always tell the truth? We have this huge tendency to believe that seeing is believing. If there's a photo of it, it must be exactly how it happened, right?
Well, actually, not quite. The crucial point here is recognizing the unreliable narrator in history. Photographs can be heavily influenced by the photographer's personal interpretation of a scene. I mean, what did they choose to frame? What did they purposely leave out? What was the lighting like, the timing, the angle? Just like those stunning British paintings that introduced Western techniques to Indian art, old photographs have to be carefully corroborated with other evidence. They are a reflection of reality, for sure, but often a highly curated one.
So where do we go when the official records run cold, the diaries are super subjective, and the photographs are staged? We turn to the emotional heartbeat of history. We look at oral history, these incredibly fragile but absolutely vital anecdotes and interviews passed down by word of mouth. They capture the visceral reality of the partition and the freedom struggle where the standard documents just fall short. And honestly, we even look at modern cinema. While they are made for entertainment, films like Lagan, Sardar, or Shahid Bhagat Singh step in to fill those emotional gaps. They vividly bring historical clashes and the intense personalities of the era to life for a whole new generation.
So we've tracked the footprints from dusty colonial archives to grand monuments, from intimate diaries all the way to the silver screen. You now know the meticulous methodology it takes to actually piece together the past. But before we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering thought to carry with you today. Look at this question. Given everything we've just uncovered about how history is recorded, how it's curated, and how it's remembered, what sources are future historians going to use to reconstruct the story of your era? Will it be your official documents, your social media, or just the stories you pass down? Definitely something to think about. Thanks for joining me on this investigation, and keep questioning the history around you.